School. All right, y'all. So this is just gonna be a very laid back conversation with my sister. And we decided to do this because we just kind of noticed that there's a lot of people not talking about things that need to be talked about. Um, I know the title for the night was Let's Talk About Mental Health, Violence in Our Children. But then we're also going to talk about why is physical health seen so differently than mental health. So we're just gonna have a conversation. I know it's gonna be a few people hopping in that may have questions, but we're gonna chat and then we're gonna ask questions. We're both clinicians. I'll tell you a little bit about me first, and then I'll let my sister tell you a little bit about her. I'm Dr. Johnson. A lot of you guys may know me. We will reshare this and allow you guys to go back and rewatch this later. But I have been doing mental health for I've been in this for about 11 years maybe or so. And I absolutely love working with this community. I love working with people that are going through things and need a little bit of a push, need some support. It's one of my favorite things to do on earth. Apparently, it's just what I was born for.
I agree completely and wholeheartedly.
So that's me. You go ahead, sis.
My name is Dawn Burke. I hail from Montgomery, Alabama at the moment by way of Chicago, Illinois. My educational background is I shouldn't it's not all over the place, but it's kind of all over the place. So I have a bachelor's of psychology with a minor in criminal justice, and I have a master of psychology, and I also have a pending master of rehab counseling, of which
I love
we're not going to get into.
it. I love it.
But yeah, um and so I got pushed into mental health because I was kind of stagnant in the position that I was in. I was working a job that had nothing to do with my degrees at all. It was completely opposite side of things, and I got pushed into mental health, and that's where I bumped shoulders with Dr. Johnson. And so we just became the best of friends because we both have a heart for helping the community in various forms. I'm a current foster parent, and I just love it to death. I'm always talking to people about becoming a foster parent, what you can do to support the foster care system and things like that. And then I know that you are on the flip side of things with working as a CASA.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so, like, we've got so many different so many similarities, but they're so intertwined, yet they're different. So it works well together because we're always bouncing ideas off each other. And what can we do to help and things like that? And then anybody that knows you, I'm always bragging on you, but you're always so involved in things that are going on in the community. It's just you have so much that you're sponsoring, so many things that you're doing. It's like, how can we not help?
Absolutely.
It's like
You
you
have to
you
help.
cannot you can't
I
stand
need
by
the
and
help.
watch you, but you can't stand by and watch you and just be like, "Oh, she's doing all this stuff." It's like she's doing all this stuff. I got to help her cuz she's my friend. And it kind of, it opens you up to just seeing the world in a different light and seeing so many different things that you can do, so many different avenues, like from collecting clothing to feeding the homeless to your wonderful event that you have to plug, to your wonderful business that you have going on, to your beautiful nonprofit that you've got going. It's so many different things that is just surrounding this little lady. It's almost like it's a toast to you tonight because
No, it's not.
you
We're
I
not
said
doing
it's
that
almost
tonight.
like it, almost, but we've got to talk about what's going on in the community because we definitely
Absolutely.
need the help.
Absolutely.
We need everybody's help, all hands on deck. And if you cannot help physically, then please help monetarily. If
Absolutely.
you can't help monetarily, then donate some clothing. It's plenty of things. There's plenty of different avenues that you can help in the forms of donation, whether it be time, monetary, clothing, telling somebody else about it, sharing a flyer, sharing a link, things like that. Anybody that you know that can, we need all hands on deck. So let's
Absolutely.
get into it
All
tonight.
right, guys. So I know she just gave us the spiel on what we do, but we're going to talk about a little hot topic. And one thing that I've noticed is mental health has became even realer than what it was. I know when I first got into it. And one thing I've noticed lately is, for myself personally, is that people will look at our physical health, but we won't focus on our mental health. And I've noticed it in certain even generations that it's almost like it doesn't exist at all still. And I almost can't believe it. I did an interview or a panel discussion recently, and there were so many questions around mental health, things that you would think people would know, but they don't know. And they run from because they're afraid to ask those questions. They're afraid
Mm-hmm.
to be seen as crazy, quote unquote. And I'm just here to try to break that. I think that we really need to figure out, because why is physical so much more important? I don't know if you guys realize, but a lot of times mental health can lead you to more physical issues. To me,
Uh-huh.
mental health is way more uh I'm not
It's
gonna
more
say more
important,
important, but it's kind
but
of
it
up
is
there.
because they coincide.
Yes,
But
because
growing up in the 80s, I'm just a tinge bit older than you. We were taught, give it to God, give it to God, give it to God. And then everybody had that one family member that was labeled as crazy that they kept away from the family, or they say, oh, don't worry about them, instead of
mhm.
getting them some help.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what?
And
One of the questions that was
mhm,
brought to me was, how do we help them? I was in a small community. Actually, it was called Manchester, Georgia. And you guys, basically, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. For example, they said there was a family member who had schizophrenia, for example. And
mhm,
they said, how do we help a person that has these type of aggressive behaviors? And what do? They basically had gotten to a point where they just kind of let the person roam and wasn't doing anything for the person. So they say, you
mhm,
people say as family we should help and stand up and focus on the mental health, but what do we do in those cases? And here I am in this small town, and I almost didn't even know what to tell them, because they're right. In this small town, there's not enough resources, which is why I'm doing some of the things I'm doing in the county that I'm
mhm.
in, is because it's not focused on enough. Mental health is not focused on enough. We are sleeping on it. Even me, I forget about my own mental health because
Mhm.
we don't see it. It's not something that you can visibly see on a person. So it doesn't exist, but it does exist. And it'll come twofold and show you it exists if you don't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if any
Absolutely.
of
And
you
I
guys,
agree with you.
go ahead, sis. I'm
A
sorry.
lot of people will have where they'll deal with mental health by putting them in jail.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the answer because they're not getting any help. If anything, in my opinion, that makes it worse
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because then they're freaking out. They it takes a while to get them diagnosed, and a lot of times the security officers at the jail, they're so overwhelmed. You don't know, you like you said, a lot of times you can't see mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't know if this person is faking or for real. Then you have those that know how to beat the system. It's just, it's a double-edged sword and you want to help them, but the resources aren't there to help them. So then they end up locked up. And if they don't have a family member that's fighting for them, then they're just kind of lost.
I truly think that that is why the balance has gotten to the point that it is as well, which is why I
Hmm.
brought that up with this topic. We've had this increase in balance over the years. I think it's gotten worse and worse and worse. But at the same time, it's just we're sleeping on mental health. And it's not just the people that they're locking up. Some of these police officers have mental issues. I'm just gonna tell it like it is, guys.
Absolutely.
And we want to put it on and I'm gonna take it a step further. Some of the doctors that's putting them in the units have mental issues
Uh-huh.
that they're not dealing with. But then at the end of the day, whenever something happens, something huge happens, oh, now you want to say that they're violent, or now you want to say they're aggressive, when at the end of the day, a lot of times people are crying out for help. And that's
Hmm.
why I say we will say, oh, this person doesn't have any mental issues, but at the end of the day, if they had high blood pressure or diabetes, you wouldn't sleep on that. So why
Sure
is
would.
this something that we are not really paying attention to? I did a training in Montgomery with the police department, and we had to do substance abuse with people that have like developmental disabilities and mental
Hmm.
illness. And a lot of the officers were saying, if a person had Down syndrome and was aggressing, they can physically see that this person has Down syndrome, so they
Hmm.
won't handle them the way that they would handle a person they don't see mental health, a person with schizophrenia, on the same level. So this person may be treated differently. They may, handle them rougher or
Mhm.
without as much grace because they can't see it. And it was just it was very, very, very relevant and sad to see that a lot of them just didn't know what to do. They're like, we're scared for
Yeah,
our life.
as you should be when you don't have the proper training because it's like
Absolutely.
what do you do? Then there's no training. And then even if they get trained on it, it kind of all goes out the window because I can't see it. It's almost like somebody with fibromyalgia.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot see it. So
Mm-hmm.
you cannot attest to the type of pain that that person is in. So in your mind, there's nothing wrong when they're absolutely on fire in pain.
Absolutely.
So it's the same type of thing, but that also tags back to physical health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
And we treat the physical health differently so say for instance when you go to a boot camp of sorts. You thrive in the ones, most people, let's say that most people thrive in the ones where they give you the positive feedback and things like that, or like they might open it up with a morning prayer or a morning mantra, something like that, that kind of gets you engaged and gets you going. That's all mental.
mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Every drop of it is mental. So if we could attack life like that and attack how we help each other and pray for each other. I see more videos of people videoing people saying this is what's going on with the person instead of
Helping.
giving them a hand.
Absolutely.
The
And
time it took you to pull your phone out your pocket, you could have said, "Hey, can I help you? Is there something going on that I can help you with?" Or even
absolutely.
a smile. It goes a long way.
Absolutely. Um, and the thing is, I don't think that we adults, and I even think back to like even my parents, their generation, because I don't even think
Hmm.
that they even realize the importance of it. We're passing this on to our kids and we're showing them, even though a lot of these kids are rebelling against us and they're not playing about the mental health stuff, but
Hmm.
I think that we have to remember that we're their leaders. We're the people that
Hmm.
they're looking at. So if we're not taking care of ourselves, then guess what? They're not going to take care of themselves. They're going to be running around doing exactly what they're seeing. They're going to mimic you.
Hmm.
If you're their parent, if you're their, their uncle, their aunt, or whoever, and you're not showing them how to have self-care or how to, deal with their mental health or and physical as well,
Hmm.
then what are they going to do?
Exactly what you showed them.
Exactly. And we literally had the mentoring program tonight. Me and Bree, I see you on here, Bree.
Hmm.
And it was just listening to these children talk about some of the things that they're struggling with. These children are going through a lot, but we sleep on it because we're so tired and we have to work and we think that
Hmm.
these kids are not going through anything, but they are.
Oh, they have it easy.
Oh yeah, they don't. And the thing is, what we can deal with because of the experience that we've been built up. We've built our strength. These kids
Hmm.
are just starting out. So these
Got to
things
pour it
is,
into them.
yeah, life that's coming at them, they're having to figure out, how do I deal with this? What am
Hmm.
I supposed to do? I don't know. And of course, we're going to open up. We're not going to just talk. We're going to open up to you guys. I don't know if anybody on here has noticed that some of these issues or have had some experiences where you felt like people were just kind of not acknowledging mental health or it linking to your, I don't know if you have any feedback that you want to give, but I just think that we really need to try to work on something because we live here right outside of Atlanta. I don't know where everybody else, well, I know Aisha and Bria, where y'all are, but one thing I'm noticing, and I talked to someone recently that I had met, his son was killed. He was mentally ill, killed by a police officer.
Mm.
And it was because the police officer was afraid. The police officer didn't know what to do because he was having an episode. So now this young man, 20 something years old, is no longer here. So I
It's
really
sad.
think that we got to do something. Something has to change. I just don't know where the link is falling at. It seems like we talk about it, and nobody's being about the change.
Yeah, well, a lot of where it falls by the wayside is the resources that are available
Yeah.
because there aren't enough resources available. Like some of them need more intense like as far as like assisted living style group homes and things like that, where they can be around like-minded peers and learn life skills and things like that and how to sustain themselves, and also with medication management.
Yeah.
Now, in some cases, you'll find that there's medication management needed. There's different forms of medication. It can be given by mouth. Some people need injections. Some people can manage without medication and can manage holistically. But if they don't have the tools, then we're just kind of just out there. So um, I know that for a lot of cities, Montgomery especially, which I can speak to, the mental health resources here are very limited.
Yes.
You call for an appointment with mental health and they're pushing you out 2 months, or they have a new crisis center. You want to go to the crisis center and they tell you, oh, we don't have anybody here past 5 o'clock, but y'all are open until 11. I'll take them to the hospital. Then the hospital leaves you sitting in the waiting room forever. Um, then, of course, the police end up involved because you're dealing with someone that's having a mental health episode. And it seems to me like it doesn't matter how many times you say it out loud. I see people and they're just like, "Oh, we're having a mental health episode, blah," and they're just sitting here and no one's helping them. And it
And
seems to me like that would be more emergent than anything.
yeah, you would think, but I heard a really strange thing the other day. A vet suffering with PTSD
Mhm.
who really urgently needed a crisis appointment, and they
Mhm.
gave him an appointment out 6 months later at the VA. And
Whew,
I'm
the
like,
VA is a beast within itself, and I could
yeah,
go on and on about how they treat our veterans because they program them to go over there and they don't deprogram them when they get back. And it's not so you make it mandatory to go, but you don't make it mandatory to come back.
yeah. I
I don't
just
understand that.
I don't get it. You if you go and when even we've been looking into like contracts and things like that, it's so much funding for physical things, the things that you
Mhm.
can see, but just nothing to help with this era. I don't know what it is that people feel like they're missing with it. And besides the fact that you don't visibly see mental health, I mean, until somebody physically
I was just
starts
gonna say
acting out.
until when it physically shows itself, and then you're like, "Oh, I didn't know."
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Um,
it shouldn't get to that point.
does anybody on here have any questions? Both of us, like we're saying, we both are mental health experts, deal with children, adults, geriatric. Do any of you guys have any questions for us thus far? I'm trying to give them time to come off mute because
I was just gonna say,
sometimes
it's gonna be a struggle. I struggle with getting off mute myself.
uh, I don't know. Oh, somebody, nope. There we go.
I'll ask a question. So, and either one of you can answer, but do you think a part of one of the, I mean, we know access is an issue and probably always will be, but do we think another aspect of it is the difference, especially in the African American community, on how diagnoses actually like the symptoms of them show up differently in depression and other things like in black women, a lot of times it's anger and frustration and you don't even realize you're depressed or
Mhm.
you wouldn't even think to relate that to depression, because what we've always been taught is depression is sadness, depression is this or that. So do you think, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I, can I respond to this one? So
Mhm.
I
Yes, you can.
absolutely think you're completely right. I think that people think that depression looks a certain way, or that we were just saying in here, just because a person is smiling doesn't mean that they're suicidal, but they're not
Mhm.
suicidal or things like that. So I definitely think that you're completely right. And one thing that you made me think about too, Aisha, is that is also the misdiagnosis that goes on with some of our
Uh-huh.
community. I was questioned about this where someone said, why would we go get mental health treatment if they're not going to diagnose us right? Especially with the kids getting diagnosed with ADHD every single time they go see a doctor. So you're telling me this kid never has depression, this kid only they all have ADHD. So I think that we need to kind of revamp that system because I think that a
Mhm.
lot of us Google diagnose people, but
Sure
we
do.
don't.
I've been to the doctor where they've given you a piece of paper and they give you this piece of paper and you fill it out. And then they're like, "Oh, it's literally like four questions on it. Oh, Well, this is the problem.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Could be one of the problems.
Yeah.
Could be misdiagnosed. You probably should just talk to me and ask me about my symptoms and things of that nature. And then, I could just really just get on my soapbox about how we have medical professionals giving psychological diagnoses, and literally everybody has the same thing. It's kind of like the ADHD thing. Everybody has that. It's kind of like the 80s where they were putting all the kids on Ritalin
Mm-hmm.
when all they probably needed was a little bit of extra work because they were actually smarter and they were bored.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm always like, okay, let's attack this first. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And that stuff is not anything that's written in a book. That comes from experience.
Yes.
So I wholeheartedly agree with depression does not look a certain way. You do not have to be sad to be depressed. And amongst our community, us being Black women in general, we push through those things because we're taught what as little girls? You
Strength.
have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the post all the time where people post, check on your strong friends, check on your strong friends. That is a very true statement.
Absolutely.
Check on your strong friends because those are the ones that are the weakest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they just keep going because they have to. It's sad. And I wish I had a fix all, to figure out how we can turn this thing around. But the fact of the matter is we need more resources within the mental health community.
Yeah.
We need more resources. We need more clinical professionals that can diagnose these different things that we have going on within the community, so that we can get some answers, so that we can get some people healed, so that they can, learn how to work through their mental health issues, because no two people will work for the same one fix.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think also we got to start over. We need a reset,
Hmm.
especially when you get to talking about the Black community.
Oh
When it
yeah.
comes to mental health, I feel like we need a reset. We all, from the men and the women, we're taught to be so strong all the time.
Hmm.
But the thing is, unfortunately, that's a toxic thought. It's that I gotta
It sure
always be
is.
strong. I gotta always have myself together. But what
Hmm.
happens when you don't have it together? Then you freak out
Uh-huh.
because you're not. It's not what this is not how things are supposed to be. And then the sad thing is, I know, especially what I've noticed for some men is when they crack and they go to their homeboy, they're like, "Oh, you're being a punk or you're a pussy or something like that," because you're not showing that
Hmm.
strength anymore. You're not showing any of the things that we've been taught that we have to display. And I just really think that as this community, the Black community, we really need a reset. When Aisha mentioned the women, with
Hmm.
us, a lot of times we're angry because we're tired, we're
Hmm.
overwhelmed, we're burned out, we're
We
anxious.
don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
We don't have the answers.
Yep. Nope. Not at
And a
all.
lot of times that's where my frustration comes from, speaking for just me, just because I cannot fix it. I'm like, oh goodness, what am I going to do? And that leads to frustration. And then it's just a tumble down of emotions there. But piggybacking off of what you said with our community and our men, they need to have a place to be vulnerable. And if we are depressed and bogged down with the woes of everyday life and no help, don't know how to work through our emotions and things like that, how can we be a soft place to land for our men?
Yeah.
And that's just, and then he feels that he has to be strong because that's what they're taught, that they have to be strong. We have to be a rock too. Who gonna be soft?
And I think that just kind of goes both ways too. I think
Hmm.
that now I've been noticing that for me personally, I wanted to focus on the whole family because I noticed that at one point, if you notice, it was like always these women empowerment, women, women,
Hmm.
women, women. And yeah, we do need to be empowered. But I think as a community overall, all of us, we really need to come together. The kids, the men, the women, all of us need a reset, and we need to be there for each
Bring
other.
back the family.
We need to be here for each other, because it's unfortunate that we're a target. We're a target, and unfortunately, we target ourselves sometimes because we're not doing what we need to do. So I want to get on a soapbox. Anybody else have another question? Because that was a great question, Aisha. I know we talked about it, but it was a
It sure
great
was.
question.
Thank you for that, Aisha. Anybody else got any questions, comments?
Y'all don't have to be quiet. This is just a laid back conversation that we wanted to have and start having some, because people have questions and they don't always want to go to therapy or to sit down. I mean,
and they don't have a platform to ask them. So now you got one.
Yes.
And no question is a bad question
at all. So we'll give some people time to come off mute because we know it takes a second. But I just think that I was just talking to one of my family members, for example, and they were taught to not say how they feel. So, they were afraid to break down in front of other people. And then when it came down to just feeling like broken, couldn't control themselves anymore. So upset, don't know how to express ourselves. And unfortunately, I'm going to say this is happening to our kids. So it's us. We're projecting this on them. This was a kid that was feeling like that, feeling like they couldn't express themselves. And then it makes me think about how we are doing the same thing. We don't want to talk about how we feel. We don't want nobody to know what we really want to have going on. We don't want to express our emotions. We want to hold everything in. Now, granted, I know there's spaces where we don't feel comfortable because some people have made us feel like we can't trust them and things of that sort. But I mean, we got to do something, guys. We got to do something different and express ourselves and work on it as a community. And maybe it will help. Maybe just this little small conversation, because we will post this, maybe just small conversations over time will help. Maybe you'll invite somebody that will help. We're not expecting, you to be on here all day.
Could be anything. Maybe I said maybe it'll start at home, and it'll trickle down from there.
Absolutely. Do any of you guys feel like you struggle with focusing on taking care of yourself, your self-care, your self-love, just making sure you're good?
Look, me.
I know me and you, but I was trying to see because it's a couple other people.
Yeah, a couple other people. I know it's got to be more than just you and I.
It's not a struggle for me anymore, for sure.
Okay. What did you do? What did you do? You said anymore. What did you do to get yourself together, so to speak?
Well, one, I had to come to the realization that I was burnt out and not happy, and that I was contributing to that, not to that part of my life. And so I had to be determined to get back to the old me. And I think this really happened because I had my son and I waited, so I was 34 to have a child. I've been married for a long time. So it kind of like really disrupted everything. I was used to a certain like groove, and so was my husband. So I mean, I think it was a part of like my postpartum depression journey, which was, to get back to me. And because I think that's the part of, motherhood people don't really talk about, is that you lose yourself because you care about this other person so much more than yourself. But I had to find out that loving him meant I had to love me more and be able to say, I'm overwhelmed, and just be honest. And so then I started booking appointments with myself, and I don't cancel those dates. I make sure I stick to those dates.
That's fabulous.
I love it. You know what, Aisha? I love that you brought up the postpartum, because one thing that I hear a lot too is people, when you're pregnant, a lot of times everybody loves on you and gives you all this attention, and if it's a good support system, I'm gonna say that. But then a lot of times it's not even just that you only lose yourself because of the baby, but people then when you have the baby, they shift all that energy on the baby and they
I
forget
was just
about the
about to
person.
say it.
Yeah.
I keep seeing posts that say,
Well,
"Don't hold the baby, hold the mom." I've literally seen that like 10 times this past week. Like, it's okay to hold the baby, but don't forget to hold the mom.
hmm
And we lose that because everybody's like, "Oh, I'll get the baby," but
hmm
oh, and you'll hear grandparents say all the time, "It's not about you anymore,"
hmm But it is.
but it
No.
is.
And we have to watch what we say to our people, y'all, because a lot of times those words stick. Just little stuff
Yes, they
like
do.
that stick,
And people
man.
internalize it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you guys, we're not going to hold you all on forever. We want to do like these 30-minute conversations about mental health. It'll be different topics and things like that. We hadn't quite figured out the frequency of it, but we do know that we want to start doing it, some workshops and things like that. It won't always be virtual stuff. We're going to do some things
In
eventually in
person.
person and stuff like that. And I got to stop saying stuff and stuff. I'm hot, y'all. I'm tired. But hi, Michelle. She came off mute.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
How y'all doing? I
Good.
was
We're
just,
good. How are you?
um, a lot of times we don't consider death as part of depression because when a person dies, especially unexpected,
Mhm.
Hmm.
then you hold that, and you go years and years. Then all of a sudden it hits you, and then you don't know which way to turn. And that's why we as a community need to really have a grief counseling, session for that.
Absolutely.
Because I'm in my 60s, and basically like at our church, people have gone through death after death within the last couple of months. And
Mm.
then you'll go by and they're still depressed about it, and they're not gonna go and get counseling. So we need to start somewhere as well with them, to let them understand. We always say death is part of the process that we have to go through. That might be true, but in the meantime, where do we start? How do we help? And especially with the little children.
Oh, yes.
And I look
Absolutely.
at like my grandson, he always says, "Well, so and so is this age. Are they gonna live a long time?" And that
Mhm.
kind of like hits home because even as a 9-year-old, he understands what death is about. But
Mhm.
does he really, really understand? And he'll say, "Well, I know they're going home to God. But that's a 9-year-old. But as an adult, it still bothers you. It hits
Absolutely.
home. I know when my brother passed away, I was just in total shock. We weren't expecting that.
Oh, wow.
It took me a while, and it takes a while to get over that part of the death, but it still hits home. And it took me a long time to really say, okay, he's not coming back. And sometimes, I say, oh my gosh, this shouldn't have happened, but that shouldn't have happened, but it does. So that is something that we have to work on, especially with the older generation.
Yes.
I'm
Mhm.
very depressed about the death issue. And I don't care how
Yeah.
many go to church, it still hits home.
Yes. I
Uh-huh.
agree with you, Michelle. I'm glad you brought that up because, one thing too, Michelle, that I hear that a lot of people do too is they expect when it comes to grief for it to be a time limit on how long you can
Yeah,
grieve and things like that. And the thing is, everybody grieves different. They go through the
yeah.
process differently. They may be depressed, they may be anxious, they may be upset, angry. You just, you go through so many things, so many different
Mhm.
emotions when you lose somebody. And I think people don't respect the process of that, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, yeah, we come here and we're gonna die at some point. But let's
Yeah.
be real, to lose something, I,
Hmm.
to lose something,
Mhm.
it's not easy. It's not
Mm-mm.
It's
easy to
it's not, and
process
it
it.
doesn't get easier. It doesn't matter how long.
No,
It
Exactly.
it it does it has no time limit.
at
And
all.
No.
if you do not learn how to deal with those emotions, you will forever be trapped there. I'm not saying that it will never not hurt,
Hmm.
but you got to learn some techniques to be able to deal with it, and those things can be learned in grief counseling. And it's funny that you brought that up. I lost my father at 16 years old,
Mm.
and I knew I wanted to help others when my mother put us in grief counseling. But my first thought when she said we're going to grief counseling is, I don't need to lay on nobody's couch. I don't need that, blah, blah, blah. And it
Right.
was like literally the best experience of my life.
Wow.
So I tell everybody, if if you can find somebody that you can gel with, that can help you work through those emotions, definitely go.
Yeah.
That's
Take your children, take your parents, take your coworkers, send them all, tell them to go because it really, when I tell you, it's life changing.
Yeah.
that's true.
What you say, Michelle?
I said that's correct.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
just having somebody to talk to because that's not gonna judge you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You go
Yeah.
to your homegirls or your family, they'll look at you crazy if you lost someone when you was 8 and you still, they're
And
like,
you
"But you
still
was
hurt
8 years
behind that.
old. You're
Yeah.
not over that yet.
It doesn't make it any less significant.
And at all. You still don't have
Mhm.
that person ever
No.
again. And I don't think people get that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, Michelle. That might be our next topic for real because
Okay.
I
Yeah,
definitely
I
That'll
want
be
to
think that's a
good.
support.
good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to be careful with that, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm. We do.
I
Okay.
agree.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes. Mhm.
any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Because this is for you guys and for whoever else, because I think that first of all, y'all are asking some amazing questions for one. Let's
Absolutely.
just start with that. And I think that this is what we need is you just reminders because what Aisha is saying, what Michelle has said, what we're all saying is basically we need to reset and we really we kind of have to stop judging each other,
Mhm.
and we also have to support each other, and we have to understand everybody goes through things differently. Everybody process things differently, and sometimes you need somebody to talk to, you need some extra support to get to where you want, to that mental health goal that
Mhm.
you want. Like Aisha, everybody want to live their best life like you, girl.
I ain't lying. I want to schedule appointments with myself.
Yes, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is we're going to record, we recorded this, we're going to post it, and we're going to redo this again probably in the next few weeks or so. But I just want you guys to know that if you need us, if you know anybody that's going through something, we do have inside and out consultants in private practice where we provide counseling, and we even have free counseling, peer counseling group that we do with one of our clients is hosting, so that everybody don't feel like they have to come and sit down with a therapist if they don't feel comfortable yet. You can build up to that because sometimes you
Yep.
may not feel like you're ready to do that, and that's okay. We want to support the entire process. And but if you guys don't have anything else, Dawn, do you have anything else before we get ready to
No, I
end?
I I do. I do. And the only thing that I have is our phone number, 334-544-0311. Call us. You got some questions, reach out to us on the website. If you got questions, call us. We'll talk you through them. We'll give you some answers. And if we don't know the answer, we'll find it out for you. We're here for you guys. We want to, help the community. We want to help everybody live their best life. And that's all I have.
That's it. So you guys, if you have other questions that you come up with, if you don't think of it right, if you haven't thought of it tonight and you like, hey, I still have a question, you can shoot it to us. You can literally text the number she just gave you and we will look at those questions. We have a whole team. We have about a good bit of people on our team
Oh,
to,
yeah.
support the whole process because we feel like it's just important to have resources in so many different avenues. But other than that, we're gonna let you guys go for tonight because we want to keep this short if we can, because we know everybody got other things to do. But like we said, if you need us, reach out. Other than that, we're gonna let you guys go and y'all have a good night.
Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
You're
Good night.
welcome.
Bye bye.
All right, goodbye.